Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Now, we took some extended time off for the holidays and to spend time with family, try to clean up some other last minute obligations, and we're going to come back on the air a couple more times this year and close out the year, this first year, going into the new year. So we want to talk about, kind of the year in summary and what's going on now that, we've had the final vote, and that's where we're at. We finally had the final vote. We had a runoff here in Georgia earlier this month. And the clown show that was Herschel Walker is gone now. I think I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, you know, this candidate was wholly unqualified. And, you know, the vast majority of Americans knew that, our fellow Georgians would make the right decision based on, what was best for the state and what's best for the country, frankly. Um, so, we got over that final hurdle, and here we are, after the final vote. Now, one thing, here at Soluble, we want the Republicans to understand. We're not here to play the race card, but it's often said that Republicans are a party of races, and they don't as far as so-called minorities, they're very discriminated towards them. And with Herschel, we have to look at this real close because it could be very deceptional that this is a different point of view, that we actually see that Republicans are not racist or prejudiced, but we have to look at the type of candidate that they're supporting. Do we as Negroes in America want a front sham candidate that represents us as a people, that is wholly unqualified, a yes man, not a forward free thinker, sit on one of the most powerful lawmaker seats in the country? So for the Republicans not to put forth and support our best and brightest, like say, for example, in 2008, we had an intelligent brother on the ticket for president of the United States, qualified, knowledgeable about the office, studied law at different colleges. So he was well educated, overly qualified for the position. And, that's the type of representation that we always want. But here we have, the Republican Party supporting a candidate that they want us to see as a reason to say that, okay, they're not racist after all. But, such a tarnished candidate, such a candidate, for a lack of a better word, who is just, frankly speaking, too dumb for the job. So we have to take a long look at that, and don't get caught up, in the hype. Try to, read between the lines here. But the bottom line is, that's not our best and brightest. And we have to look at why the Republicans would want to support a candidate that was wholly unqualified. So with that being said, the final vote has been cast. So, here we are. We're going into a new year with a majority Senate Democrat. We still have the Oval Office, but yet we're, losing control of the House. There will be a new House Majority Leader from the Republican Party. Now we're going to take a long look to see, and hold them their feet to the fire here at Soluble going forward into the new year. And, we're going to have to call balls and strikes when it comes to, whether the Republican Party is doing, the will of what's best for America, the will of the American people, or the will and or what's best for the party. Now, since, the final vote was cast, we had, Senator Sinema, who champions, she tells us that she champions bipartisanship. that people, across the country are tired of, the two-party system and the back and forth between the parties. But as soon as the final vote is cast, and she realizes that, Herschel is not going to be the senator, and we're going to have even a bigger majority in the Senate, majority in committee, and things like that, she defects. She leaves the party, and she's now independent. Now, as I said, this is a senator who, by her own account, champions partisanship, and she wants the bickering, like most Americans. We want it to cease. We want the two parties to reach across the aisles and work together to get what's best done for the American people. We want that. But now with Senator Sinema, as I said, we won the final vote in Georgia. We eliminated Herschel. And, we have a good thing going here where, one would think, if one was a Democratic senator, you would think that they would say, well, okay, we have a strong majority here now, and we can get some things done. This is going to be more likely to create compromise. 51-49 split is going to more than likely create compromise, because the Republicans see that they have to start to come back to the middle, because the American people are not voting in election deniers, any remnants or semblance of MAGAism or Trumpism. They're not voting in. So you would think that the senator would look at that and say, okay, we're set now. We're set to get some done, because that's what the vote does. The vote shakes up the politician to let them see that, my job is on the line. My seat is on the line. It wakes the politician up to see that, well, wait a minute here. Just like they voted me in, they can vote me out. So, it brings them back to the middle of the road. It more than likely brings them back to the table of compromise. So once again, let's take a long look at this stunt, because, that's pretty much what it is. This stunt that Senator Sinema has used or has, perpetrated to leave the party and now become an independent. Why after the final vote? That's what you have to ask yourself. Why after the final vote with the runoff in Georgia? Why? Why now? And you want cooperation. You want more bipartisanship. You don't. I mean, common sense would tell me, anyone, any couch potato politician, that if you want more partisanship and you have a solid majority, you don't defect and make the power of the majority smaller in order to get compromise. Because, as I say, the way it should work is that the Republicans should see the light now. There was no red wave, except for a hand wave, maybe in a red glove or something like that, to say goodbye to election deniers. The last semblance of Trumpism. Lost since 2016, loss after loss after loss. They see that now. And that's what will bring them back to the middle of the road, to compromise. So, it is what it is. She's defected. She's becoming independent. She's more or less trying to cover her job. And, we hope that, well, we know that Democratic voters in Arizona, honest to goodness, voters will send a message when her seat is up for re-election. We trust that our fellow Arizonians will send a message to Senator Sinema. But since the final vote, that has been one of the main occurrences. Now, going into the new year, the speakership is really in jeopardy. The Republicans are sort of, back and forth. They can't seem to, gather all the wagons, if you will, behind a solid Speaker of the House that we can anticipate wielding the gavel come the first of the year. Minority Leader McCarthy, he has some dissent there in his party. And, going forward, we're going to have to take a look at that, because, to as I said, we're going to see if the Republicans are going to put country first and what's best for country, or what's best for party. And that's where we're going to go in the year 2023 here at Soluble, God willing. So this is after the final vote. Everything has been counted. It's out. It's gotten better. But as I've said before, the former president was what it looks like when you have a minority rule, when the majority of people don't vote. Another occurrence that has happened after the final vote going into 2023, we're going to have to keep a close eye on the representative-elect from New York, Mr. Santos. He's flat out lied, and what he's categorized as or tried to dress up with fancy words as embellishments. I mean, here's a Republican representative-elect. Lied all the way around the board when it comes to where he went to school, where he's worked. Possibly he's lied about his heritage. How can you trust it? How can you trust it? I mean, if you're going to lie about some things so simple, so ordinary, that you have to know that the system that we live in, with open records, laws like we have them, that the American people are going to have access, to those records. Totally misrepresented. And these are not, as I said, or as he said, embellishments. You flat out lied. Is this what we expected? This is a spinoff of Trumpism, still the remnants of it. This is evidence that we need to rock the vote more and more often. Now, here at Soluble, we won't get into the vote now no more, because it's a long ways off now. We got another 2 years to just, kind of look at what's going on in everyday politics and keep our viewers, our listeners, informed as to what we think is best for the country and Democratic voters and would-be Democratic voters. We're going to keep you informed there. But with Representative-elect Santos, here it is. This is the question going forward. Is the Republican Party going to do what's best for country or what's best for party? I mean, with at least 5 dissenting votes right now for the House speakership, and Senator McCarthy, Congressman Minority Leader McCarthy being in jeopardy of being challenged, seriously challenged for the speakership. Will he look the other way? Will he do what's best for the country here? Here is the test going forward. And this is just one example to show you that we're fresh off of an election. It's investigate Hunter Biden. It's investigate this. And here's the speaker. He's silent. The press has already shoved the mic in his face when it comes to Representative-elect Santos and what he plans to do about it. As I said, the Representative-elect Santos is saying embellishments. Now this should, harken back, and it should be a reminder ringing in the back of our head of alternative facts. This is what's still rearing its ugly head in the era of Trumpism. This should be unheard of. This should automatically disqualify the representative-elect from New York and let a new election be held. Because, how do we know? How can we say with an absolute degree of certainty that, the votes that were cast for him were cast because of his record, because of his resume? So those voters feel cheated. But, at the end of the day, that's going to be up to the state government, in New York to, I guess, decide what's going to happen as far as, the voters, the constituents in that district, crying out, screaming out for, a revote or another election or however you would term it. But that's what's going on right now in the Republican Party. And it just, here at Soluble Oppositions, it just seems like they can't help it. It's like they can't help themselves. They walk upright. They walk upright. But all too often, they have to go down and begin to slither. They have to go back down in the mud, down to the dirt, and begin to slither. Now, as I said, we're fresh off of an election. The country doesn't need this. Forward thinking, forward progress into the future for, things that combat climate change, to keep the economy pumping, a strong military, provide for the general welfare with jobs, with opportunities, with innovation. We don't need this, but here we are. So, you have a party, and it may seem biased, but it's not. If we catch, or if we see where a Democrat, whether it be a congressman, senator, the president, it doesn't matter. If they have a party affiliated D beside their name, we're going to have to call them out when this has to do with integrity, ethics. Because this is what creates a sound government. We need people who are honest. We need people who are going to do the right thing when no one is looking. Continue to do the right thing. And, based on what's going on alone right now with with Representative-elect Santos. And once again, this is the Republican Party. This is a party that proclaims to love this country. They love their country. They love America. Well, if you have a would-be representative-elect from New York who's lied on his resume, who's lied about his qualifications, I mean, you have to see it as a threat or a danger or a serious red flag that calls for disqualification, because if he lies about this, what else? What else? Who knows? There could be a dead body buried under the garage, down in the basement. And so, as I said, the would-be speaker is hanging on by a thread. It's not etched in stone. It's not guaranteed that Minority Leader McCarthy is going to become the next Speaker of the House, because he has dissent. He has dissent from 5, possibly 6 congressmen in the party. So now what does he do? Does he keep mum? A representative, a lawmaker, a person in government who loves their country will do the right thing here, regardless of position. This reeks of someone who cares about power more than they care about country, and setting the standard for future congressmen, for future senators, as this country moves forward into the 21st century. This is a bad look. This is a bad look. The representative-elect from New York has been less than truthful, and the would-be speaker, the next would-be speaker of the House, will not comment. Will not comment. Maybe it's going to be one of these things where, after Santos gives his vote and gives him the blessing to be the next Speaker of the House, and he can sway some of the ones that's going against him. Maybe after he's in and he's wielding the gavel, then maybe he'll bring this issue to the forefront and deal with it. It remains to be seen. But here at Soluble, we plan to keep you informed and keep you aware of what's going on. whether you tune in on a nightly basis when we're on, or whether you can go onto YouTube and Facebook and find us there. But we definitely plan on keeping you, informed. So that's just some of the latest. The January 6th committee is closing the report. They're bringing the investigation to an end. All kind of things are coming out. Burning of documents, burning of papers. The president's wants to know if he can get 10,000 troops marching around him to take him to the Capitol on January the 6th. Why? We have to look at this, especially as Democrats. But to all my fellow Americans, we have to take a serious look at, the fact that now that there's being a power shift, we have to rush this investigation to a close. A legitimate investigation that we saw before our own eyes happen. We all saw it. It's a part of history now. It was a dark day for American politics, for American democracy. We all saw it. So why the urgency? Why rush to close it? Why do the Democrats have to feel, and there are Republicans on the committee also that, will no longer be congressmen or congresswomen going forward because they participated. And this is a party, excuse me, and this is a party that proclaims to love America. How do you love your country and at the same time undermine all of its institutions, all of the institutional norms? How? It doesn't jive. It doesn't square. Going into the new year, God willing, we're going to open up our invite window. We look forward to inviting, people on from time to time with different points of view, different political points of view, the same point of view, opposing views, like-minded views, but, with a different approach. And the goal is, as I said, always to, hold both parties' feet to the fire. Because, after this previous administration, that was a serious threat to American democracy. We here at Sawyer feel the need, the urge, the patriotism, if you will, to come forward and try and make a serious attempt to speak truth to power, bring the dark to the light, whether it's Democrat or Republican. And the Republicans should be on the same page. They should be on the same page for country, for, what the Constitution stands for. But, we have to be on our guard. We have to be vigilant because, we've seen evidence or hints of where, if the Republicans can't win a free and fair election, then throw the Constitution out the window and let's have anarchy and start over again. And this is the idea of the foolhardy. This is an idea of the foolhardy. So, with the would-be speaker not coming out forthright and denouncing Santos, the January 6th committee has to wrap it up because power is being shifted from one party to another. It shouldn't make a difference. It shouldn't make a difference whether it's a Democrat in power, Republican Party in power, or the Independent Party, for that matter, in power. January 6th was an event that all of us as Americans, should want to get to the bottom of, to see what's happening here. The burning of documents, the flushing, possibly flushing down the toilet of official government papers. And all this, ladies and gentlemen, from a party, an ideological party that, says they love America. They love their country. Well, this is property of the American taxpayer. There's a great possibility here that this is property of the American taxpayer, but it's being flushed down the toilet by a people, a president who's raised his right hand by all accounts. We've seen it on that inauguration day so many years ago, in 2017, to protect and defend. And the president came into office and did anything but. So, going forward after the final vote, we have to be aware. We can't sleep on it. And that's what we here at Soluble intend to do. Intend to bring the facts forward for you, keep you aware as to what's going on day to day in politics in America. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that this party, the Republican Party, we have to ask ourselves, why are they so selective when it comes to things they want to investigate, things they want to look into? And it's going to be up to us as the American voters to say, just like we put the election deniers out of business, we're going to have to take a long look at that because we're talking about the future of the country here. We're talking about the future of the country here. Historically, the economy has done better under Democrats. That's already a plus. Now, when is the last time in the last, let's say, 5 election cycles, have you seen the level of lying, unethical candidates, all kind of unprecedented violations going on in the Oval Office, undercover deals, the American people not having full disclosure as to the business dealings of the former president? All these things are coming out now. And, we have to stay aware. We have to be aware of what's going on, or this democracy, as sure as I'm sitting here, will cease. It will cease if we don't hold Republican politicians to account. Now, to the Republican voters, this is not to change your mind. This is not here to, try to convert you over at all. These are your candidates. These are your candidates. And, so it's going to be up to you as voters in this party, for this party, supporting this party. Are these the kind of candidates that you want? Candidates like Santos. Is this what you want? Someone who will lie and, wants to sit in the seat of a lawmaker in this country, in the state of New York. How can we trust it? And, as I said, just like we voted out the election deniers, we're going to have to do the same thing continuously, or this democracy, once again, will cease to exist. A house divided cannot stand. We know this. We know this. And so, as I said, over the 5 election cycles, we haven't seen this from Democrats at this level. And that's not to say that, the Democratic Party is full of saints. That's not to say that. But you have to ask yourself, before the midterms, gas prices, grocery prices, inflation. It was all the rage. It was all the urge going into, the election. And now, as I said, one of the main things we're talking about is investigating. So it's going to be up to you. This democracy will only stand it will continue to stand strong, continue to be a leader in world governments if we go out in every election cycle and do what we did, this past November. You don't, to the Republican, once again, to the Republican voters, what are you getting? We're going to invite you on going into the new year. We're going to invite you on to any of our Republican listeners out there. So you can tell us here at Soluble and the American people what you're getting and what you're giving, to the American people. Your strong military, small government, low taxes, the state's right to choose. We're going to take a long look at it. We're going to take a long look at it, how it benefits the country and in what areas. The last, two Republican presidents. One seriously, disrupted us as Americans economically with the Great Recession. And then, the last one here disrupted us seriously socially. As a country that we went from a country that was where it was socially acceptable to it was socially unacceptable. Racism, name calling, attacks, having law enforcement called for little to no reason. And that's what we got, under the last two Republican presidents. Disruptions economically, disruptions socially. So, here we are after the final vote. Let's see if they can figure it out. They're the House majority. The House is in the hand of Republicans now. So let's see what they will bring forward. And, to each his own, but meaningless, pointless investigations that are always a bridge to nowhere. They should be unacceptable. The American people should be outraged at the amount of time and taxpayer money that is spent on these sham investigations, all to lessen the opposing candidate's chances of winning office the next time around, or with the upcoming election that's pending. That's all it is. It's a smear campaign dressed up as an investigation. But as I said, here we are in the year of our Lord, December 2022. Heading into a new year. And we're on the brink. This thing could teeter or totter either way if we don't pay attention to what's going on. Because, there's a good chance that we could have candidates, lawmakers, sitting on Capitol Hill that are saying one thing and doing another. As is evidenced right here with Representative-elect Santos. He hasn't even got into office yet. And these things are, like I said, you can call it what you want it, but here at Soluble, we see it as a spinoff of Trumpism. Lies. Cover-ups. We don't want the American people to really know what to believe. So, if we can get them to that point where they don't know what to believe because of the scare tactics, the propaganda, the way we put it out there so eloquently. If we can get them to a state of where they don't know what to believe, then they're more than likely to believe anything that we say. That's where you're at, American voters. Wake up. Have an open mind. We've never, in the history of this country, had a candidate running a cabal in a pizza shop where, young children were being exploited as sex slaves. and the federal government didn't come and do something about it. We've never had that in a political candidate. But these are the kind of lies that QAnon is spewing. And believe it or not, you know, a lot of people are eating it up. Has, the Republican Party come out in strong condemnation of QAnon? Q is anonymous. Who is he? Who is she? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it a teenager? Is it somebody out of Russia? QAnon. Q is anonymous. So, no strong condemnation from the Republican Party. And they can create lies and, stir up all kind of misinformation. These are tactics. These are head games designed to throw the American people off so they don't really know what to believe. And once the Republican Party gets you there, hear me good. Once the Republican Party gets you there where you don't know what to believe, then, by their calculation, in their twisted minds, then you will begin to embrace whatever they tell you to believe. You will begin to feel as if, out of all these things going on, these cabals, the government is sending people out to do mass shootings so they could take our guns. There are litter boxes in the classrooms, and they're making the kids, urinate inside the litter box. If, from the Republicans thinking, if we could scare you up, if we can mislead you, if we could bombard you with misinformation, then we can create a scenario or a state of mind being where you will only feel safe with us. You will only be believing what we tell you, because we can muddy the waters up so good that, everybody is the bad guy, the enemy of the Constitution, the person trying to destroy America. It's everybody or anyone except for a Republican. And this is where they want you at. So, as I said, going into the new year, this is one of the main reasons why we plan to keep you informed, keep you educated as to what's going on. But, as I said, the American people are not slow to catch on. We're just here as a reminder, as a refresher to keep you on your toes. We're getting ready. We're being forced to have to hurry and close a legitimate investigation dealing with a serious threat to democracy. We've had a peaceful transition of power forever. Forever and a day it's been one of the cornerstones of American democracy to have a peaceful transfer of power. And, as I said, the hypocrisy is outrageous. Here's the hypocrisy. The Republican Party created a fit. And regardless, the would-be president, former candidate Al Gore, he bowed out gracefully for the sake of country. Not that he was convinced that he didn't win the election. He did it for the sake of country. So there would be a peaceful transfer of power. And he sacrificed his desire to be president he realized he was caught up in a terrible situation where the former president's brother, little did the Democrats know, but now we know it's in the playbook to try to taint an election any kind of way that you can. But to make my point, the former candidate Gore was in a bad situation because he realized, okay, Florida is a state that's hanging in the balance by a hanging chad, and Coincidentally, if you believe that, the governor of the said state is the brother of my competitor, the person that I'm running against. So, at the end of the day, he did the right thing. He bowed out gracefully. He did it for the sake of the country. But before that, the Republicans were all over him, sore loserman. Let us in. They wanted to get into the places where the people were counting the votes and everything. Now along comes former President Trump. And, I say that with clenched teeth because, as I've stated on this podcast, there's very little that was presidential about the man in the way he carried himself and the way he conducted himself while in office. But along he comes. He burns bridges. He comes into office beginning to burn bridges on his way to re-election. Because, for one, he's not intelligent enough to wait till after his second term to alienate so many people, to tear the country down so bad because it doesn't matter because, he can't seek another term anyway. He's done his 8 years. But at the end of the day, he did everything to create a situation where he became a one-term president. We're going to go into it tomorrow a little bit with a revision of, the things that we discussed this year leading up to the midterms and from the time of the first day we came on air, a refresher, if you will, of all the things that we discussed. But he created a situation for himself where he became a one-term president. Number one, and one of the main things he did that he didn't really realize was to try to tear down a patriot of this country, a noble statesman, a patriot, a man whose fault in the late great Senator McCain. He blew Arizona. And after he blew it, would he bow out gracefully? After he lost Georgia, would he bow out gracefully? So, we're going to not let the Republicans off the hook here. We're not going to let them off the hook. There's been a free and fair election. The MAGAites came out in the minority in an attempt to get the president a second term, and they wouldn't accept it. The federal government should sock it to them at the highest extent of the law, to the fullest extent of the law. When they can ID through facial recognition or whatever, these people who were prancing, prowling, patrolling around in the Capitol and shouldn't have been there, when they can identify them, they should prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. The fullest extent. And it's legitimate. Not only did we as Americans experience it and see it, but the whole world was watching. And we have, these autocratic countries like China, Russia, North Korea, just basking in the glow of our failures, of our political tensions here at home. And then you have a man, a party that proclaims to love their country. And they serve, live, work, and make their money in a country where every 4 to 8 years there's a peaceful transfer of power. And we were violated. We were seriously violated in that regard. But the committee has it shut down now. And they're cramming. To their credit, they're cramming. They're trying to get it all together, because they know there's a limited amount of time. Here we are in the last week of the year 2022. And next week, there'll be a vote for a new speakership. So they're cramming. But they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to. They're cramming and scrambling because they know that there's a party coming into power that says now out of their mouth, that we love our country. all things that we do is for love of country. But not once have you seen the minority leaders in either the House or the Senate, step forward to say, do you need more time? Or, is there any mop-up duties that we need to take upon ourselves when we're sworn in to power on the 3rd of January? You don't hear nothing. They want it to go away. It's not to them, even though it's been a serious breach here, a serious violation of protocol. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's no big deal. And, it remains to be seen. Going forward into the new year, it remains to be seen, how they're going to conduct themselves. So that's why we here at Soluble, we're framing it in terms of, in the form of, it's Democrats and Republicans. Don't get me wrong. But right now, the Republican Party and Republican politicians seem to be the greater threat. So we're going to have to see, by observing, by watching, by paying attention, whether the Republican Party's actions are based on what's best for the country or what's best for the party, or if they're based on what's best for the party. And we have to hold them to account. Democrats as well. As I said, I'm trying to figure it out here. Well, we've had an election. Is there a Democratic candidate? Is there a Democratic representative elect who, we can, where it's come forward now that, they falsified and lied on their resume, possibly forged documents, official documents? Is there? And so, as I said, this is one of the reasons also why we want to open up for inviting opposing points of view, like-minded points of view. Because at the end of the day, we should all want to do what's best for country. We live in a great system compared to what's going on around the world. As I told you before, living here in the city, meeting many people from many different countries, they all say the same thing. There's no place like America. So what should that tell me as an American citizen? That I should do everything I can to guard, protect, and defend a righteous and just democracy. I should participate in it because I live in it. I'm a part of it. My children are a part of it. My loved ones, my friends, all part of it. So I should participate in it. And we hope that we can encourage, our listeners as we gain our audience. Each one will teach one or tell one that in order for us never to have to go back, this is what we should do. We should pay attention, and we should come out every 2, 4, 8 years, whatever it's called for, when there are vacancies in political seats that need to be filled, and let our voices be heard. We should never want to see again what happened to Brother Floyd. We should never want to see that again. So in America, one of the best ways to ensure that it never happens again and be proactive about it is to engage in the political process. This is where your power is at, to prevent this, to be proactive versus reactive. Now, if we have to react again, that's a bad thing. For all my fellow Americans, Negroes in particular, that would be a bad thing. For us to have to come off in a reactive manner. It's already happened then. So what we should be trying to do is prevent it and being proactive. And one of the best ways of prevention and being proactive is to rock the vote. And you see it. You see it. You don't see the outrageous, outlandish things that were going on just 3 years ago. You don't see it. The former president dismantled everything, especially things that had Obama's name on it. Dismantle it, throw it out, get rid of it. I want to destroy his legacy. And then along came COVID and bit him into you know what. Now he's scrambling, trying to get back one of these things that he destroyed or made go away in the name of Obama. Now he needs it. More importantly, the American people needed it. And you see what the consequences of it was. A lot of needless death, a lot of needless suffering. The economy taking hits by not good, sound decision making. Talking down science. Speaking, of scientific medical facts, speaking of them in a bad light. Only because they don't want the economy to tank. That's what they were afraid of then. They didn't want the economy to tank, and they was afraid of it. So we'll pull out all the stops. We'll say and do anything. Lest we forget. This could rear its ugly head again. So here we are, after the final vote. As I said, after this insult that was Herschel Walker. And to my fellow Americans, once again, Negroes in particular, this candidate did nothing to prove that the Republican Party is not a party of racism. This candidate did nothing to prove that. As a matter of fact, it showed us, it backed up just what we were thinking. Do we want to be taken as a joke? Do we want to be put up in a position of power, just to be fodder, just to be daily fodder? No. We want our best and brightest representing us, even if they are in the opposing party. We want our best and brightest when it comes to Negroes in America representing us. So the Republicans proved nothing. They proved nothing, zero, by taking an unqualified Negro in Herschel Walker and attempting to make him a sitting senator with no qualifications. They proved nothing. Just the opposite. Like I said, that they want to keep being able to control us. Call the shots on us. Tell Herschel what to do, where to sign. So here we are. We've got that out the way. We got it out the way. We have a solid majority in the Senate. As I said, we have the Oval Office. And of course, the House is going to be in the hands of Republicans. But Soluble will be here. Have no fear. Have no doubt. We will be here to keep you informed, to let you know what's going on. When you can't read between the lines, when you don't have time to dig deep and go into depth as to know what's going on in American politics with Republicans and Democrats. Soluble will be here. And our main goal is to keep you informed. That's going to conclude our broadcast for tonight. After the final vote, we're closing out the year. The date is December the 28th in the year of our Lord, 2022. And tomorrow, God willing, we'll bring one more final podcast for this year. And that one will be we'll go into a revision, if you will, of what the things that we've discussed so far this year. The origins of how the two parties switched. What's happened in the last, say 40 to 50 years when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, as it relates to the pluses and minuses, as, what's best for America and, the outcome of those administrations and those Republican and or Democratic ideologues. What happened in America? What was best for us there? So we plan on, closing out the year with, as I said, going over all the things we discussed this past year leading up to the midterms. From the war in Ukraine, prices at the pump, the economy, is COVID still rearing its ugly head? What kind of a threat is it? What kind of support should we give to science, the medical community? The 2024, even though it's nowhere close to here, we're going to take a long look at the candidates, the whole nine going forward. But tomorrow, as I said, we're going to give a year in review, a summary of, important political goings-ons, if you will, in the country for the year 2022, so that we can go into the year 2023 more informed and more ready to pay attention, so that we can never let the country again fall into the kind of turmoil that we endured with the previous administration and the acolytes around them. With alternative facts being created, fake news, witch hunts, hoaxes, things we've never heard a president say or accuse our Justice Department or the FBI of. Most of our past politicians have took responsibility for their wrongdoing, bowed out gracefully, or took their punishment. So that's what we're here for, to keep you informed. And we'll look forward to bringing you that podcast tonight, tomorrow, which will be our final podcast for the year 2022, dealing with a summary of all things discussed leading up to the midterms, and since we first came on air at the beginning of this year. So we thank you for joining us. We hope there's been a happy and blessed holiday to each and all. And we look forward to you joining us tomorrow for our final podcast for the year 2022, going into the new year. This is Soluble signing off. Thank you for joining us. God bless and good night.